Well, hello. Welcome back to my channel. Joshana here to talk about some friggin' stats. It is that time of year. I'm recording this on January 3rd, so the year is officially over. I thought I might be able to finish one more before the 1st. I ended up finishing it on the 1st, so, which I actually kind of liked because I ended up with an even 80 books that I read in 2023, and that was just a nice tidy little number. Also, the last book that I finished of the year was a high note, so that was good also. So let's just get right into it. Gonna have all the graphs and numbers and things. Not as many as a lot of people, but I do have several. Starting with number of books read and DNF'd each month. Again, as I said, I completed 80 books in 2023. I ended up DNFing 27. I think technically 28, but one of them I didn't actually count. I didn't even put it on my spreadsheet because I read like 4% of it, like barely a chapter, I think. So I didn't count it, but in Storygraph, I did mark it as did not finish. So we can see I started off strong in January, as I usually do, and then it kind of fluctuated here and there. It comes out, the math of how many I read over the months, it's like 6.7 per month, so 6 or 7 per month on average. Some months, the highest I think was January with 11. In previous years, there have been times where I've read, 15, 16 in a month. That just didn't really happen as much this year. A lot of times it was, 5-ish, 6. I also DNF'd quite a few in January. October was an anomaly. I finished 7. I did pretty good going through stuff, but I also DNF'd 5. So this year I also, because the spreadsheet I was using, it does keep track of how many days it takes you to read each book. And I did my averages per month, and we can see August, which I think was also a low, I finished 8. Sorry, I finished 8. Also, sometimes though, the finished isn't I read this book in this month, because I don't do monthly wrap-ups for one thing, but also there's several books that take me weeks on weeks, so I might have finished it in August, but I started it in July, so on and so forth, so it's not super telling, but yeah. Through the summer, the end of the summer, it was taking me a little bit longer to finish things. Clearly, we can see. But in the spring, I was doing pretty good. My overall average for how long it takes me to finish books, for all the books I read in the whole year, 7 days is my average time to finish a book, which I think is way longer because I see people sometimes doing wrap-ups and talking about oh my God, this was a slog. It took me 5 whole days to finish. And I'm like, that's kind of normal for me. That's very normal for me. I'm not that quick of a reader because I don't sit down and read for more than 30 minutes usually. I simply cannot. I talked about this already a little bit with my goals, but my money spent versus money saved, which money saved is using the library. I did use it a little bit more this year, or last year, 2023, and I do plan on using it even more this year because I am doing a low buy, low spend year, and books is one of the things. I spent $12.57 total in the whole year on books. And as I said before, that would be $500 less had I not splurged on the biggest book splurge I've ever done personally, on the Folio Society edition of Shadow of the Wind. Now on to books acquired, books unhauled, and total net gain for the year. Books acquired 47 and unhauled 40. And this is physical books, not counting digital stuff. That's a whole thing. But so my total physical acquired through the year was only 7, which is actually pretty cool. Pretty happy with that. I am a pretty frequent unhauler. Okay, then moving on to the books that I hauled, which ones I read, which ones I just DNF'd or just unhauled or left untouched. And I did okay with this, actually, this year. I think this is better than last year. I don't know that I track of this last year. I probably did, but I deleted it. It's whatever. But yeah, I read a little over half of them, of the books that I acquired this year, from the beginning of the year until the end of 2023. I read about half of them. And then unhauled 10%, DNF'd 5%, and there's about 32.5% untouched. It's fine. I'm very happy with that, actually. On to diverse reads. I've talked about this before. I used to, a couple years ago, keep track of like any and all representation in a book, all the different categories that you might see, as well as author representation, like author identity kind of categories. And I stopped doing that because it just, especially for the author piece, I don't know, it felt a little weird. It kind of gets invasive to me for the author. Regarding the content in books, I mean, you guys have seen me talk about books where I will kind of say, oh, hey, for representation, here's some stuff. And whether or not I feel like it was handled with care or not, based on my knowledge or understanding of a particular group's identity and their experiences, or if it's something I can personally talk about, I will, obviously. But yeah, all that to say, I just keep it really simple now. The last couple years, I've kept it really simple. Like, would I consider this a diverse book? Is there a diverse voice telling the story, to my knowledge? Is there representation in the book of some marginalized communities or various marginalized communities? I count that as, yes, there is some diversity here of, you know, disability representation, sexual orientation representation, just LGBTQIA+, racial representation, socioeconomic, like all the things, right? I'm just like, yep, there's some, or nah, this is pretty homogenous, and like, whatever. And this has been the case for the past couple of years. This is another reason I don't I don't really keep track of all the nitty gritties. I got myself into the habit of seeking out and picking up a fair amount of diverse books, and where I don't like need to be so conscious of it anymore. It's just kind of the habit that I've built, right? As we can see, 88% were yes, and most of those were like hard yes, like main character representation, or like obviously the author like is talking about their, you know, representation and all of that, all their identity. So I'm pretty pleased with that. New release or not, I kept track of this. I don't like care so much about this, other than there are a lot of books, backlist books from, you know, many moons prior that were published that I want to read, like that are on my long TBR. So I do want to keep up on new releases, but I'm not necessarily the booktuber that is talking mostly about new releases. And I kind of want it to keep it that way. I like being kind of in the middle here. So I did read 30% of the 80 books I read were new releases this year. So I did read a fair amount. Books that were published just in the last year, 20%. So half the books I read were either 2023 or 2022 publications, release dates, whatever. And yeah, that's fine. And then any of them that were before 2000, it was 11.3. And then everything else is just the no. No, it's not a new release. And no, it wasn't like pre. So it's basically anything from 2001 to 2021. In those 20 years, that's all the no. I don't know if I'll continue keeping track of this because, like I said, I care, but I don't know. Whatever. It's on this spreadsheet I have. It's just like a little checkbox. So the age range. This is pretty standard for me. 80% adult, 17.5% young adult, and then 1.3% new adult, and I think the same 1.3% middle grade, which is like one book, I think, for each of those categories. So I read a little bit of young adult. I can't remember what it was last year, but a little bit. Not mad at that. I do prefer to read mostly adult, though. Hi, Lily. Would you like to come up here? You got a little something on your face there. What is that? Would you like to say hello to the people? Say Happy New Year? Say Happy New Year. No? Are you so cute? What are you doing? Hi, baby. Do you just want to sit? You can sit. Just sit. Then we have genre, and it's a little more colorful this year, I feel. Still 54% fantasy. And then this is like genre gets weird because there's genre blends, you know. Like romance, 8.3%, but several of those, not all of them, there was a couple contemporaries, but like several of those were fantasy or romance fantasy, right? I counted them as romance because that's like I think where they would be shelved, but there's like a strong fantasy element, you know. And then sci-fi also, I think there was only like 2 sci-fi books I read. Thriller, I have 1. Poetry, I had 2 poetry. Yeah, I think I had 2 poetry and like 2 or 3 sci-fi, and then like maybe 2 thriller. And then horror, I just had 1. And what's this? Oh, a classic. Yeah, classic that I didn't finish. This is just all books I picked up also, by the way, not like books I finished. So like that classic was a DNF. And then contemporary, 5.5%, mystery, 2.8%, historical fiction, 14.7%. That makes me happy because I do like that. And then nonfiction, 6.4%. I read a little bit more nonfiction as well, which makes me happy. I assume fantasy will probably always be the majority, but I do enjoy breaking it up every now and then because I do find a lot of books that I quite like in the historical fiction and even like some mystery sometimes and occasionally a romance, but that's very hit or miss. So getting into my series situation, I completed 7. I did talk about that in my goals video. Completed 7. Like 2 or 3 of those were like novella series, but whatever, it counts. I completed them. And then I got caught up with 6, where I read, you know, either book 1 and I counted that as caught up, or book 2 or 3 in a series that's not finished yet. I am now currently in the middle of 30, and I DNF'd 16 series this year. And now we can get into which ones those were. These were the series that I decided to officially DNF this year. The Blood Mercy series, I read the first 2 books, and I think I picked up the 3rd one. And I just couldn't. I was so disappointed because I really liked the first book. The Kishi by Antoine Bondelay, I just don't even know if he's going to be continuing that. I just re-signed up for the newsletters because I apparently had lost track of them. I don't know if he's finishing that or not, but I am also just more interested in the T.J. Young series and the Tales of Essawan series, which is the other one. Wait, that's not this one, is it? No. Yeah, Sky Pirate Chronicles. That's the one. I'm more interested in that one and the T.J. Young than I was in that. That's the Tales of Essawan. There's that. Silver Under Nightfall by Rin Chupeco. I read the first book. Didn't care about it. I think I DNF'd it. Or did I finish it? I don't know. The Niveau, the Singing Hills Chronicles. I read the first 3 of those, and I really liked the first one and the second one, and I just didn't like the 3rd one quite as much, and I kind of didn't care. Crossroads of Canopy, can't remember the name of the series. I DNF'd that first book. Daughters of Izdahar, I finished, and I just decided I don't think I care to continue. I didn't like it enough. EOS Key, I DNF'd. Dragonfall by L.R. Lamb, I DNF'd. These are first books. Bloodsucking Fiends by Christopher Moore, DNF'd that. The Ninth Reign, I read the first 2 books. Didn't continue on to finish the 3rd one. Strange and Stubborn Endurance, I read that. DNF'd the 2nd book. Sun in the Void, DNF'd. 9 of Swords, I read. And this might be a soft DNF for that series, but I don't think I'll continue. Maybe I will. And then Wild Seed, read the first 2. Decided I don't think I want to read the series. And then Bone Shard Daughter, read that. Enjoyed it. Fine. DNF for the 2nd book. Bear and the Nightingale, read it. Didn't really care that much. Not going to continue on. These are the series that I completed here. Voila. 1's a duology. And yeah, 2 were novellas. The Cemetery of Forgotten Books I was pretty proud of because I reread those first 3 books and finished the last one. And they're thicker, but well, not the first. There's just one that's kind of small. The last one is a chunker. And then the Bells, that was just that last book. I was waiting for that to come out, and it finally did, and I finished it. And then here's all the series that I am in the middle of. I've read at least the first book, and I plan to continue on and finish someday. And then I have a list of, like, I don't even know how many, let me see, that I could start, like series to start. I have 20 currently. And probably more if I were to like go through my actual like Storygraph TBR. I'm sure there's a shit ton more like first books and series that I have on there that I want to start, but... And then for the books that I read, the format, 56% were physical, and 31% was ebook, and 12% audiobook. I read a lot more ebook and audiobook this year, I feel like. I don't know, I'll have to look and see what it was last year. It feels like I read more. I used my Kindle especially a lot more. For my owned unreads, at the beginning of 2023, I had 155 owned unread books on my shelves. I ended up picking up 40, so there are still 115 untouched. Of those 40 that I picked up, 57.5% of them I actually read, 20% I DNF'd, and then, so I attempted to read, but just was like, no. And then 22.5 I just unhauled. They were just books that I had that I was like, I don't actually care, and I'm not even going to attempt to read this. So I'm pretty happy with that. My goal was 30 to pick up, so I got to 40, that's great, and the large majority of them I at least attempted to read. And the majority I did read. Yay for me, huh, Lillie? Yay. She's very, very happy, can you tell? Here are my specific individual ratings for the year. I do use the quarter stars on Storygraph, so that's why there's like a lot of options here on this pie chart. Where's my fives? Yeah, 8% was 5 stars. And what's my largest one? I think 4.5? Yeah, largest is 4.5. So that's pretty cool. I like that. I'm happy with that. Here I break it down into kind of bigger chunks. Anything below a 3-star, there was only 9.3%. And then jumping up to the 3 to 3.5, 28%. 3.75 up to 4.25. These are ones that I really, really liked / loved, but maybe aren't a favorite. That's kind of that like chunk there, 34.7%. And then 4.5 to 5, 28%. So I'm pretty happy with that because 4.5 or 4.75, you know, if I'm doing like an Amazon review or if I were to go on Goodreads to rate it for some reason, I would round those up to 5, right? I like, they're like so close that I feel like they do deserve that when it's an option. So 28%, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. And there we have it. That's the stats. I don't know that there was anything else I wanted to touch on from my like spreadsheet. Oh, my average rating. My average rating for the year was a 3.9. That's my average rating of all the books I read. I'm not mad at that. It checks out. I'm pretty damn stingy with 5 stars. I don't know why. So there we go. Let me know any stats you care to share. How many books did you read? Are you someone who plows through books and just you can read a whole bunch? Way more than me? Do you maybe take more time and you read a little less? And read a little slower or whatever? Are you like me where you can't sit down and read for like a whole afternoon anymore? It makes me so sad because I used to do that all the time when I was younger. And like, I just simply cannot anymore. My eyes go wonky, my neck hurts, my back hurts. I get sleepy. I just am immediately tired. It's very fucking annoying, but what are you gonna do? Also, did you have any stats that were like surprising to you this year? I don't know that I had any that were surprising. Did I? I don't think so. Intrigued to see how it all plays out in the year to come. What I can read, if I maybe switch up genres a little bit more, get a little bit more diversity in my genre selections, or if I kind of just stick to the fantasy and the historical fiction. We shall see. As always, thank you so much for your time. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.